Hi, I'm Ekwo, and this is Outbound, a podcast by EF Education First that showcases transformative travel stories that defy our expectations, challenge our assumptions, and teach us something new about the world and ourselves. Our story today, the power of belief and the search for spirituality in the Dominican Republic.
Every single time, my heart would stop. I just had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to be bad. I always associate these things with like black magic kind of, or some sort of like negative voodoo stuff, because that's how people talk about it.
Laura is from Bogota, Colombia, but moved to Boston when she was 12. This is her story about an experience that she had while traveling in the Caribbean that fundamentally changed the way that she understood spirituality and gave her a new lens on life to see and believe in the truth of every individual's experience. And this would turn out to be a game changer for Laura because she's a therapist, a licensed rehabilitation counselor and transition specialist to be specific. So her life work is to understand the experience of others and to help them progress.
Essentially, I help adolescent girls, specifically girls with borderline personality disorder, who have been in hospital treatment settings to transition out into the real world and adjust to everything that comes with not living in a hospital setting.
The church was a large part of Laura's family life and a big piece of her culture as a Colombian. But her father is a vocal agnostic, and her personal relationship with the church was super complicated. She was kicked out of a class at her religiously affiliated college, for example, for some of the questions that she was asking. So she was unsatisfied, literally asking questions and not getting answers. She wanted to dig deeper, to find out what religion really meant for her.
I always assign meaning to things. Like I always found myself growing up, no matter, whatever age, when I could kind of have the awareness to do so, I found myself assigning meaning to a lot of things, especially growing up in Colombia where there was a lot of we were towards the end of the Civil War at that point, and seeing a lot of things and hearing a lot of stories, I always questioned like why this would happen to people. There were bombings, and you walk down the street and there's like men holding AK-47s. As a child, it's a very marking experience, and so I'd always ask why, like, what is the grander meaning, or what is the reason, or always trying to find a reason behind stuff. And I never could. I had a lot of opportunities to ask why, but it never kind of hit home, so to speak. Like it never went beyond the brain level, I guess. So I was very passionate about trying to really figure out religion, so to speak. I really could only differentiate like religion and faith, but nothing else. I didn't really think that there could be like a spiritual component. I just kind of was always trying to figure out what is faith and how do people have it, and like how does religion and the institution link with your soul and like all of that deeper stuff.
Another big piece of Laura's story at this time in her life, in addition to her curiosity about religion, was a calling to do humanitarian work abroad, to follow in her dad's footsteps.
My dad, he worked in international nonprofit his whole life, and I kind of saw what he did for other people, and it really planted kind of like a helper, I want to help in some way in an international context.
Laura also just wanted to stretch her perspective and challenge her views.
I knew that it would shake up my priorities and perspective, and in doing so, I was hoping to kind of open my mind to just other belief systems and worldviews. That was my hope. I didn't know how or if that was going to happen.
Fast forward a few months, Laura has found an opportunity to do community development work in the DR. Flew to Santo Domingo, had a whirlwind 3 months of training, receives word about where she will actually be working for the next 2 years, gets on a bus and finds herself in Consuelo, the oldest sugarcane town in the DR. Trucks, Motorcycles, music, the heat, men catcalling, not the pastoral countryside she'd expected. But then she meets her host mother, who has something about her that puts Laura at ease, who has something about her that is clearly special.
So my host mom comes to pick me up. She introduces herself. Her name is Charo. And she's this very tall, maybe she's like 6'1", regal-looking Dominican woman. So she introduced herself, and just very, very kind, very, I could tell that she was kind of like what I would describe as intuitive or perceptive. You know, just kind of, she could tell that I was overwhelmed, and kind of automatically she connected with me in that way. That kind of like connection that I look for just right off the bat, which was really cool. And then she walked me home and kind of gave me a lay of the house. It was this big cement block house, not painted, it was the color of a like cement block, with red iron door, like a red iron door. And you walk in and it's very spacious. So the rooms inside didn't go all the way to the top of the roof, and the roof was made of zinc. So you could hear everything, and like a lot of airflow, kind of just very airy and roomy inside. And there's, living room, kitchen, and then a bathroom with no door. No door in the bathroom. She has one daughter, so she introduced me to her daughter, and she's this 14-year-old, very sassy, tomboy, independent young woman, kind of just doing her own thing. And it's just her and her mom, and so they take care of each other. My host sister and her mom shared a room, and then I had my own bedroom. So the lack of privacy was something I had to get used to immediately. Charo and I, my host mom, we got so close that within the first month, I could tell that there was something she wanted to tell me, but was very hesitant to not scare me off. She kind of like would drop that she had this gift, kind of like she didn't really give me much information. She just kept saying she would talk about her gift, right? And then her daughter, Mabeline, my host sister, would say, Mom, no, like, just, it's fine, don't describe it. She doesn't, she won't believe it, or like, she'll be scared off. Which, of course, naturally, like, piqued my interest. I'm like, what? I want to know more. Like,
Laura's obviously super curious about what it means when Charles says that she has a gift, but lets it go. Until Charles' birthday, when things start to get a little weird.
We went out dancing, merengue and whatnot, and she buys a bottle of rum for herself. And before she drinks any of it, she takes 4 little shot glasses and puts them at her feet. Pours 1 shot of rum in each glass. And then just leaves them at her feet for the entire night, like leaves them in the exact same spot. And then proceeds to drink. And so I noticed that, but I didn't question it because we were out and I didn't want to get into it. So the next day, we were sitting on her front porch. So she has this beautiful front porch. She does a lot of holistic medicine healing stuff. So her whole front yard is just lush vegetation, all sorts of like medicinal herbs and plants, and there's mango trees and orange trees, and I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. We were just sitting there, and it was a beautiful Sunday, breezy day, listening to some merengue music, a little bit lower than the night before. We were drinking coffee, and I asked her, I noticed that you did this. Why did you do that? I kind of played it off as, like, is it a Dominican thing? She said, okay, well, I guess it's time I tell you. You're living under my roof. It's bound to happen. The holidays are coming. And I said, what does that mean, the holidays are coming? And she said, well, it's when it typically happens more, because more families are in town, more people are around, and more people want to come see me for it. And I said, see you for what? And then she just says, okay. She explains to me that ever since she was little, she's felt something inside of her. She had the ability to deliver messages to people and not knowing where they came from. And that message could either be a premonition, which proved to be true, or kind of like a warning or a protector message, something like that. Over time, she was able to kind of develop this internal calling that she describes to being able to access spirits that in Haitian voodoo and Dominican voodoo, they identify as saints. So there's like 21 different saints that Dominican voodoo practitioners believe in, and she was able to possess 4 of them. She could bring it up herself, like she could do it kind of on call, or they would come up if they had something that they needed to deliver, a message or something, or if they needed to protect her, they would kind of come up on their own. And so these 4 shots of drink is every time that she drinks alcohol, she has to acknowledge their presence so that they don't take over when she's out in public, drinking and dancing. It was a lot to take in. I was absolutely skeptical of it initially. I didn't know what to think. Coming from a psychology background and rehabilitation background, I thought, okay, maybe she dissociates or has some personality stuff going on. And then the more and more I experienced it, and the more I saw kind of the community, there's a whole community that is involved in this, and I saw more things happen, and it just kind of, I stopped thinking of it more as a psychological process and more of a spiritual one.
After this conversation, after Charo opened up to Laura about what the gift meant, she became more comfortable with Laura in her home. So when these saints or spirits overcame Charo, Laura was included in the experience. When a spirit was possessing Charo, it would often address Laura directly. It happened more and more often. Looking back, Laura said that she probably spoke more with the spirits that possessed Charo than Charo herself. Laura tried to rationalize what was happening. She looked at it through a psychological lens, her profession. She even consulted with her uncle, an anthropologist, who suggested that it could be a defense mechanism, that as a single mother living in an extremely patriarchal culture, the appearance of supernatural ability could raise her social rank. But all of Laura's attempts to reason fell short of explaining what she saw and heard and felt.
She was actually born on November 8th, which is the day that they celebrate the cardinal of these saints. So she identifies herself as the daughter of this cardinal saint. There are 4 specific ones, and I saw each one of them. Primary one that would come out was Anaisa, Saint Anne. Her thing, she's a very poised, elegant, kind woman, spirit, and whenever she would come out, she would put a yellow handkerchief on her head. Yellow is the color that they associate as a symbol with her spirit and her saint. Every time that she was trying to do a consultation or deliver a message, she would always ask for 1 single cigarette and liquor. And it had to be liquor, it couldn't be beer, it couldn't be wine. It had to be a sip of liquor and a cigarette, and then she was ready to consult. So that was Anaisa, and she was the one that I think I was least scared of, because she was so kind of poised and elegant and kind. And she never came to deliver bad news or anything, or she didn't have a demanding way about her, which was very soothing. And it was the only one that wasn't a demanding force. San Miguel, Saint Michael the Protector, he would always come up when there was something to protect around Charo specifically. So anything she was going through, any message that she needed to hear but couldn't hear from her internal self, he would come up, tell it to somebody, and then that person had to kind of give it to her. Somebody that she respected, somebody that she would take their word for. He always needed a cigar. Always, always, always only wore red and green. For each saint, she had kind of altars set up representing them, letting them know that she's acknowledging their spirit on a day-to-day basis. While he was in her body, he took me to his altar. He told me to protect Charo from hurt that she was currently experiencing. The scariest spirit, Santa Marta, Saint Martha. She was a force to be reckoned with every time she would come up. Her symbol is a snake. Whenever my host mom would be embodied by her, she would faint on the floor, and then she'd be still for maybe a minute while this whole internal process happened. She would slither across the floor like a snake, and speaking, and I couldn't understand anything she was saying. It was never Spanish or English or any sort of coherent words. Until you stopped her, gave her what she wanted, and then she would speak and deliver a message. And what she always wanted was coffee grounds, burnt coffee grounds. So we always had a tin of burnt coffee grounds in case Santa Marta would come up. I'd give her the can, and she would shove him in her mouth, just in a very primal, animalistic way. So then we would sit her up against a wall, and she would have a conversation with us. So at Santa Marta, and her thing is she clears negative energy. So when she's kind of slithering across a room, she's clearing all the negative energy from the room. She is also what they described as like the concubine of all the male saints. Like, she came up on Christmas Day. My host mom's like cousin was there, and her male friends and like girlfriends, just, and so she would always go up to all the males and like flirt with them and try to, seduce them and stuff. That was pretty jarring to watch my host mom do that. Like, it was in her body. That image will never leave my mind. And then the fourth one, he's like the most well-respected in this culture. Papa Candelo, this is the one that my host mom says is her father, because she was born on the day that they celebrate him. He is like the like cardinal spirit of all 21 divinities. He's the wisest one, he's the oldest one, demands a lot of respect, and you can kind of feel that when he comes up. You had to halt and shake his hand, and it was a very formal process to be able to talk to him. And he's the one that when my mom's face kind of sags to like an old man, and her voice changes and she sounds like an 85-year-old man, that's him. And he wants to heal. He's the healer. His was the malt soda. His was always a malt soda, like a Malta. So those were the four. I would always be caught off guard. There was never kind of like, hey, St. Michael is coming tomorrow, so prepare yourself for a conversation. No. I would know when one would come up, because her feet would always get cold. She would rock back and forth. She would chant something, and then I would know that like within the next 5 minutes, it's happening. Every single time, my heart would stop. I just had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to be bad. I always associate these things with like black magic kind of, or some sort of like negative voodoo stuff, because that's how people talk about it. I don't think in the moment I could like think through the why. I was just like in the moment, soaking it in, answering the spirit's questions as honestly as possible, because I was like, if I were to lie right now, they'd probably know. She had a very specific message for somebody across the way. So we lived like across a field, and across on the other side of the field there was a woman who was 2 months pregnant. And so the spirit came up to deliver the message to be careful, because the woman was going to get in an accident and could lose the baby. I walked with my host mom, who was embodying this Anaisa spirit. She gave her the message, and then we walked back. 3 months later, the woman got into a motorcycle accident, a really bad motorcycle accident. But it was those moments, right, where I was like, is this coincidence? Was this really, and so those kinds of things were really, really kind of stretched my mind, and kind of really having to struggle with, was it coincidence? Was it really like a premonition? Was it really the spirit? I mean, I think I still question it. And during the time, all I could do was really kind of accept that was happening.
Laura brought the journal that she kept during her time in Consuelo to our interview. This is her reading an excerpt that depicts a moment that she describes as the most significant experience of her time living with Charo.
So this was December 19th of 2012 at 4 p.m. I even wrote the time. What is going on? My beliefs are being shaken and tested, and I don't quite know how to react. I got home for lunch. When I walked in, my host mom looked different. Pale face and had sunken eyes. I told her that she's been sick for a while and should probably go to the hospital. In hindsight, I feel bad that I insisted it was medical. My sister came into my room and said, "It looks like her spirits want to come up. I just want you to know that if you have to, you can lock yourself in your room." I'm glad she prepared me for what was to come. The next thing I knew, there were quite a few people here, including Frank, a brujo, like a male witch, who has tons of experience with this stuff. I peered out, saw him with a branch full of leaves and a red cape, then I heard stomping. I retreated back to my room and waited. I don't know what I waited for, but I just waited for something. I guess my imagination of my mom possessed. Contorted, face disfiguration, and with costume. Then I heard her say my name, and my host sister said, "Laura, come on, let's go." I asked where, and she said, "So it doesn't stick to us." We walked to what they referred to as the hillside. All along the way, He, the guy in the red cape, was spraying and throwing this liquid on us. My sister kept asking me, "Did you get any? Has it gotten on you yet?" There we were, 5 people walking in a line down a dirt path, all worried and confused, except for Frank. I felt like we needed a soundtrack for what was happening, something straight from Armageddon. We end at Frank's work shack in a valley that I have never seen before. We get there, and Frank starts a fire, walks over it, goes into his work shack with my host mom and sister, and I'm told to stay outside. About 10 minutes later, Frank, now possessed by Candelo, the father and wisest of all 21 divinities, comes out and asks Angel, or Angel, one of the guys that came to the house originally, to go pick up a white candle, a small bottle of rum, and a cigar from the corner store, and meet us back at our house. We all walk back without Frank, and on our way we see Angel walking. He doesn't look okay. He had a black cloth bag over his head and was walking as if he were drunk. My mom stopped to ask if he was okay, and he started singing a song. He then fell to the ground on his back, completely still. About a minute later, his stomach inflated like a basketball. And my host mom told me to go back home, that it's safe now, that I need to go back in. I insisted on staying. I was curious. She told me that if I wanted to stay, I had to turn around. I refused. Right then, Angel's stomach deflated, and he stood right up as if he sprung up from his shoulders. He started singing a song that my mom called the Baron of the Cemetery. Later on in the night, Charo, my host mom, explained everything to me. What had happened is earlier that day, my project partner had thrown a bad spell or omen onto my host mother. They were having like a bad fight over something. And when my mom was feeling sick when I got home from lunch, it was the spell that she had cast on her. She said it was to kill her. When Frank came over, he was there to get us out of the house because the omen was floating around waiting to stick. The liquid he was splashing on us was to protect us from it. When Angel went to the store, the omen had stuck on him but was only strong enough to bring him close to death but not fully kill him, I guess. Which is why his stomach had inflated. The song he was singing when he got up was the Song of the Dead that people sang at people's funerals. The more and more I saw my host mom essentially lead her life based on this belief or this kind of philosophy that she does embody these spirits and that they will always protect her, I then started understanding what faith meant, right? So going back to not really wrapping my head around faith, I understood what it meant to have faith through this because she knew that something would protect her. And for her, it was her the spirits that she carried inside. And so that was my first kind of okay, maybe this isn't real. And for her, it is. And for her, it's real enough to feel safe in making whatever decision she makes in her life to go through with it because someone will protect her.
This was the epiphany that would permeate both Laura's personal and professional life. That if you truly believe in something, then that something for you is real.
This is spirituality. This is in its most raw form. There were days when I would wake up and not know who I was going to encounter or meet or experience. And that inconsistency of a day-to-day in a different environment, a different culture, a different family away from home. I mean, it was challenging and really challenging my internal experience and my thoughts and my beliefs. I mean, stretching it in all sorts of different directions. I could almost not keep up. Spirituality wasn't I didn't really understand that until this whole trip and this whole journey, because now I understand spirituality is really such an internal, personal experience, and you choose to nourish it or express it or whatnot, and there isn't this institution around it. It's just your own journey. Now I trust a lot of my own decisions. I just trust that a lot of things everything's gonna be okay, and that kind of things do happen for a reason.
Laura explained to me that her experience with Charo in the Dominican Republic has improved her ability as a therapist in her work helping mostly young women transition out of states of debilitating depression. A key aspect of this work, Laura mentioned, is validation. It is recognition that every individual's experience is unique and that your experience is your reality. When Charo became Santa Marta and slithered on the floor, Laura learned to believe in Santa Marta. So, Santa Marta told Laura what she had to say.
You know, during the transition of these girls coming out of the hospital is figuring out their life path, right? And so for me, I've come to a place of acceptance that a life path will kind of develop for me as long as I listen to myself and listen to, you know, the moments where I get passionate about something or the moments where life feels right. So when I'm talking to my clients about what they want to do next, I ask them those questions. What moments in the last 6 months have you been doing something where life just felt right? Or, you know, I'm really asking, like, what makes you on the inside? Like, what is that fire? What gives you that kind of passion to create, to do, to speak? What is it? You know, and so I'm always trying to kind of ask the more like intrinsic questions to help them figure out what their external life is going to look like. And it's because of learning how to listen to myself and learning how to accept spirituality and faith, really.
We just traveled with Laura to the Dominican Republic, where she met a handful of saints living through one woman and learned that belief can create, that spirituality, it's hers to choose. I'm Ekwo. This is Outbound. See you next week.
This hangout with Dominican Saints is brought to you by EF Education First, the world leader in international education. Outbound is hosted by Ekwo Edzi, produced by me, Megan Martineau, and sound designed by Billy Woraznik. The intro music is written by Ryan Jackson. If you want to submit your own transformational travel story, you can do it on our website at eftours.com/podcast, where you can also listen to all of our episodes and find out more about EF. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe. And if you ever want to say hi or give us some feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at outbound@ef.com.